The story opens inside the terrifying Agrich family mansion, a household infamous for raising ruthless murderers and psychopaths. Roxana watches as her father returns home with a new prisoner, a young silver-haired boy whose hands are tightly bound behind his back and whose mouth is gagged. Despite being bruised, bloodied, and dragged by force, the boy refuses to lower his pride. Instead, he glares defiantly at the entire Agrich family with unwavering golden eyes. To the Agrich family, people are nothing more than toys to torture. In her previous life, Roxana was recommended a dark romance novel. She got engulfed in the novel, and when she died, she was born as the villainess of the story. The novel was about how the female protagonist, Sylvia, gets herself involved in kidnapping, incarnation, and erotic relationships. It was the ultimate X-rated romance novel. In the story, 5 families rule the world: Black Agress, Blue Pedelian, Gold Verdium, White Fipalian, and Red Castro. Sylvia, the female protagonist, is a Blue Pedelian. She is the archenemy of the Black Agress, where Roxana is reincarnated. She possessed mystical silver blue hair and brilliant golden eyes that shone as brightly as the sun. She was portrayed as an exceptionally beautiful young woman. Everything seemed peaceful until tragedy struck. The heir of the Pedelian family, Cassis Pedelian, was kidnapped. His captor was none other than the head of the Black Agress family, Lant Agress. Without hesitation, Lant gave a single order: lock him up in the dungeon until he breaks. Heavy chains were wrapped around Cassis before he was dragged away. Watching everything unfold was Lant's daughter, Roxana Agress. She has read the novel, and she knows all the future events. At that moment, she realized something terrifying. We're so screwed. Roxana approached the guard standing outside the dungeon. "May I borrow your keys for a second?" The nervous guard refused. "I was strictly ordered not to let anyone in," Roxana smiled. "I never said anything about going in." Then she teasingly asked, "Are you guarding something precious?" "Like a handsome, silver-haired boy, perhaps." The guard immediately lost his composure. "I just wanted the keys." Completely flustered, he handed them over. As soon as Roxana took the keys, she quietly thought, "Idiot." The guard suddenly realized what she intended to do. "You said you just wanted the keys." "My lady, you'll get me killed." Roxana calmly inserted the key into the lock. "I changed my mind. I won't take too long. No one will even notice. And my father doesn't need to know about this either." The heavy dungeon door slowly opened. Inside, the room was completely silent. Then, a silver-haired boy finally came into view. His body was covered in wounds. Blood stained his clothes as he remained shackled by heavy chains. Looking at him, Roxana quietly reached a decision. "I guess I should save him. He's my only means of survival after all." The Agress family wasn't like any other noble house. Every month, a grand banquet was held, but it wasn't a family gathering. It was a competition. Lant Agress had more than 10 wives and countless children. Only the 3 children who proved themselves worthy were allowed to sit beside him. There was never a place for me. Of course, that was only when I was a child. Everything changed when I grew up. As I looked at my mother, I couldn't help thinking how beautiful she was. She had long golden hair and deep blue eyes. Ever since I was born, I had always been fascinated by beautiful people. When I first saw her, I could only think, "She's beautiful." For a while, I was actually satisfied with my reincarnation, but everything changed. The day I met my father, he looked at me once. "We'll name her Roxana." Then he turned around and left. That was the only reason he came to see me. Only then did I realize. He hadn't even bothered to visit me before that day. Unlike him. My mother held my tiny hand and wished that one day I would make House Agress proud. The moment I heard that name, Agress, a forgotten memory suddenly returned. I had been reincarnated into the very family from the abysmal flower. A family infamous for theft, poison, fraud, and above all, murder. Killing people meant nothing to them. They ruled the empire's criminal underworld from the shadows. Anyone born into the Agress family had only one destiny: to inherit that blood-soaked legacy. Every child was forced into brutal training from an early age, and I was no exception. Studying was easy, but I had no talent for combat. Even my own father looked at me with contempt. How pathetic. Those words never left my mind, as if that wasn't enough. He had already begun talking about my courtship. I couldn't believe it. Dating? At this age, this family was hopeless. Just then, someone called out to me. Zana, it was my older brother, Achille Agres. Unlike everyone else in the family, he was gentle, kind, the only person who truly cared about me. When he noticed I was upset, he asked what had happened. I told him father wanted me to start preparing for courtship. He was just as shocked as I was, then he softly smiled. Don't worry. I'll always protect you, Zana. At the time, I never noticed that even his hands were trembling. Not long afterward, Achille collapsed. His body lay motionless. Blood spread across the ground. Heavy chains still bound him. Achille didn't make it through the special family test and ended dying at the young age. No matter how loudly Roxana screamed, nothing changed. Then a cold voice announced, Achille Agres has successfully been disposed of. The memory faded. Once again, Roxana stood inside the dungeon. Before her, Cassis Pedelian remained chained to the wall, his body covered in blood. She examined him carefully. Then she realized they had paralyzed him with poison without wasting another second. She uncorked a small vial and carefully poured the medicine into his mouth. At first, he struggled, but eventually, he swallowed it. Moments later, his golden eyes slowly opened. The antidote was working. Suddenly, he threw all of his remaining strength against the chains. Before anyone outside could hear, Roxana quickly silenced him. Be quiet. She held his face firmly as he instinctively tried to spit the medicine back out. Don't spit it. It's an antidote. Their eyes met. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Roxana quietly said, Believe it or not, I'm here to save you. She knew exactly who he was, the heroine's older brother, but more importantly, her own survival depended on his. He glared at her. What did you make me swallow? Roxana answered calmly. An antidote. You were drugged. If I hadn't given it to you, you'd still be in extreme pain. She looked at him. Don't you feel better? Cassis couldn't deny it. The unbearable pain was gone. Even his voice had returned to normal. Still, he refused to trust her. If what you're saying is true, why did you give it to me? What do you want from me? Nothing. Roxana answered without hesitation. Then she asked, Your name is Cassis Pedelian, isn't it? The moment she spoke his name, Cassis's expression changed. Stop playing dumb with me. You brought me here knowing exactly who I am. Then he shouted, Who are you? Are you one of those filthy agresses? Roxana quietly realized something. He knew he was inside the Agres mansion, but there was something strange. She waved her fingers in front of his eyes. How many fingers am I holding up? Get lost, Cassis snapped back. Roxana stepped closer. There's no other explanation. Without warning, she pulled his shirt and examined his body. I knew it. It wasn't poison. It was sorcery, she explained. It's only a temporary spell. In about 2 days, you'll be able to see again. Then she quietly added, I know you'll never believe me, but I wasn't the one who did this to you. She then left the prison while he kept shouting, stopping her from leaving. The next day, Roxana returned with food. I thought I'd bring you something better than the garbage they keep feeding you. Rats feast on the filthy prison food while Roxana holds out a small golden pill. It's a meal replacement pill. Cassis laughed coldly. You expect me to take something from an Agres? Roxana sighed. I understand why you're suspicious, but this is the only way to survive. The next moment, she struck Cassis on the stomach. He screamed, What was that for? She responded, You keep refusing to eat. I am just gonna have to put you to sleep and make you eat it. Silence filled the prison. Then he asked once more, What do you have to gain from helping me? Roxana simply walked closer. Just eat this first. Before he could resist, she grabbed his jaw and forced the pill into his mouth. You should be able to swallow it without water. It's dissolvable. After swallowing it, Cassis looked at her again. Why are you helping me? What's your motive? What's your name? She replied, Roxana. Cassis silently repeated it in his mind. A fitting name for someone with eyes that resemble rubies. They were as crimson as when the curtain of darkness is drawn, and the burning sun rises. Back in her room, a maid reported, You're at stage 5 natarium tolerance. We'll be increasing the dose by 0.2 parons starting today. That's a lethal amount. You may experience stomach pain, temporary paralysis, or even cough up blood. But Roxana calmly drank the poisoned water. The Agres family built immunity to poison. by repeatedly poisoning themselves. Even though Roxana had already become resistant to most poisons, she still continued. Then she asked, "So, what's Jeremy doing now?" "He's in his room. He'll be here any second now." The moment Roxana finished drinking, the door burst open. "Roxana, I'm here to pick you up." Here comes the antagonist of this story. He is her half-brother, Jeremy Agres. In the original novel, the heroine Sylvia is kidnapped by the Agres family. While imprisoned, she learns that her older brother has died. The grief destroys her, and in the end, she wipes out the entire Agres family. But the one who truly set that tragedy in motion was Jeremy Agres. Back in the present, Jeremy visits Roxana. It looks like he loves her and wants her to be safe. Roxana simply smiles, thinking that despite everything, Jeremy is still just an innocent child. Jeremy then brings up the mysterious prisoner their father recently captured. He wonders why no one is allowed near the new toy. Their family refers to prisoners as their toys. Roxana admits this one seems a little special. Delighted, Jeremy immediately tells her that he has never seen her so interested in any toys before and that she can have this toy. Roxana affectionately pats his head before leaving for the family banquet. That night, the top 3 children were supposed to have the banquet with their father. Their father congratulates everyone on this month's accomplishments before asking Roxana about her consistently ranking second place. He asks about her poison butterfly experiment. She confidently tells him that after 2 failures, the final egg is healthy and she's certain it will succeed. Pleased with her answer, he praises her. Then Roxana points out his happy mood and inquires whether it's because of the new prisoner. Her father smiles. "You are a smart one, Roxana. You remind me of my younger self." He tells them that the captured boy isn't an ordinary victim. He's the blue heir of the Padillion family. Jeremy jumps to his feet in complete shock. The legendary blue heir has actually been captured. Roxana pretends to praise her father. Her father replies, "I didn't know you were interested in these kinds of things." She calmly explains that the Padillions are known throughout the world as noble and righteous people, and among them, the blue heir is considered the greatest. Then, with a chilling smile, she says she'd like to see someone so noble crawling beneath her feet like a horny dog. The cruel display earns loud laughter from her father. The banquet ends. Outside the hall, Jeremy seems really annoyed and takes out his annoyance on one of his maid. He asks Roxana if she's really going to discipline the prisoner herself. Roxana thinks he is worried about losing my attention. How cute! Before the conversation can continue, the youngest sibling, Charlotte, storms in. Furious, she screams that the prisoner belongs to her. She's always been allowed to play with every prisoner brought into the mansion, and she refuses to let Roxana take this one. Roxana calmly reminds Charlotte that those privileges were never her right. She only had them because Roxana never cared before. Then she asks a single question. "Did you really think you'd always get everything you wanted?" Charlotte has no answer. Roxana simply calls her foolish. She slowly pulls a long black hairpin from her hair. Smiling gently, she tells Charlotte, "Let me show you in a way you'll understand." The next instant, the hairpin slices through the air. Blood splashes across the floor. Charlotte collapses, trembling in fear as Roxana stands over her without the slightest emotion. She coldly tells her, "You always make such a big deal out of everything." Just then, another brother stops Roxana. He tells her to leave and says he'll deal with Charlotte himself. As soon as Roxana is gone, he grabs Charlotte by the hair and yanks her up. He says, "I am already pissed off because of that prisoner. I don't need another reason to be mad." He tells her to take out her anger on the prisoner locked in the dungeon. Then he reveals something Charlotte never knew. The boy imprisoned below is Cassis Padillion, the same blue heir everyone had been talking about. Watching Charlotte's expression change, he quietly plants one final thought in her mind. "You wouldn't destroy him just because you can't have him, would you?" Charlotte says nothing. Her heartbeat echoes in the silence. Then, a twisted smile slowly spreads across her face. After leaving the hall, Roxana returns to her secret greenhouse. Hidden deep inside the poisonous garden is a giant egg, the final poison butterfly. Unlike the previous 2 eggs, this one has survived. According to the novel she read in her previous life, poison butterflies are incredibly rare creatures. Even after creating the perfect environment, there's only about a 30% chance they'll hatch. But hatching it is only the beginning. To make the butterfly recognize her as its master, Roxana must continuously feed it her own blood. Without hesitation, she cuts open her wrist and lets her blood drip onto the egg. As the shell absorbs every drop, Roxana thinks to herself, the more hidden weapons she has, the better her chances of surviving inside the Agrich family. In the novel, one of the male leads, the White Tamer, is the one who discovers the poison butterfly egg. He had the power to tame all sorts of evil creatures. Of course, she doesn't have powers like him. All she can do is try to tame this beast. The more advantages she can hide inside her sleeves, the better her chances of survival. While leaving the greenhouse, another thought suddenly bothers her. The first-place child, Dion, didn't attend the family banquet. That isn't like him. The only person who could have kept him away was their father. Although she doesn't know why, Roxana can't shake the feeling that something is about to happen. Moments later, one of her maids arrives with an urgent report from the dungeon. Charlotte forced her way inside and attacked Cassis. But that's not the shocking part. During the chaos, the magical shackles restraining Cassis somehow broke. Roxana immediately rejects the explanation. Those shackles were powerful enough to restrain giant demons. Charlotte could never have broken them herself. Someone must have manipulated her. Instead of panicking, Roxana smiles. Jeremy probably manipulated her into destroying them somehow. She finds it interesting. Roxana's mother then visits her. Her mother happily congratulates her for placing second during the family banquet and proudly tells her, "You truly are an Agrich." At that exact moment, blood begins running down Roxana's injured arm. Her mother panics, but Roxana calmly hides the wound as if nothing happened. She tells her mother that she is a bit tired and doesn't have enough energy to spend with her. Heartbroken, her mother agrees and asks her to rest. She says, "I didn't mean to bother you." Then, after quietly thanking her mother, she thinks she doesn't blame her for letting Achille die. But their relationship can never return to what it once was. Roxana leaves the room without looking back. Outside, she orders her maid to prepare poisoned tea. As she walks through the hallway, blood slowly drips from her arm. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, a guard continues beating Cassis, furious that he refuses to break. Covered in blood and chained to the wall, Cassis silently endures every blow. Then his thoughts drift back to Charlotte's attack. Charlotte had screamed that if she couldn't have him, no one could, especially not Roxana. At the same time, Cassis remembers that another child had also mentioned Roxana. Who exactly is she? Instead of focusing on the pain, Cassis studies the magical shackles binding him. Then everything suddenly clicks. Earlier, he watched another prisoner struggle against the same restraints. The more that prisoner fought, the tighter the shackles became. That's when Cassis understands their secret. The chains only react to resistance. If he remains completely calm, their power weakens dramatically. Immediately, he decides to hide this discovery from everyone until the perfect chance to escape appears. But then another thought crosses his mind. Roxana, she may have already figured out the shackle's weakness. As Roxana's image fills his mind, surrounded by crimson butterflies, Cassis quietly whispers her name. Roxana Agrich? After everything that has happened, only one question remains. Should I trust you? The episode opens inside the Agrich dungeon. Cassis is chained to the floor, his body covered in blood after enduring relentless torture. One of the Agrich men mocks him for being related to the Pedelian family, stomps on him repeatedly, grabs him by the face, and demands that he break. But no matter how brutally he's beaten, Cassis never lowers his eyes. His silence only frustrates his captor even more. The man laughs. Roxana's father says that he brought Cassis here instead of another prisoner because he believed Cassis could survive longer. Then he warns him he'd better not disappoint him. Lant Agrich suddenly brings up Roxana's birthday, something he's never acknowledged before. He tells her that since it's her birthday, he has a gift for her. That gift is Cassis. Standing before the battered Cassis, she smiles exactly the way a true Agrich should. She tells her father she'll train the prisoner herself and won't disappoint him. After her father left, she ordered the servants to clean him up. She has no interest in playing with someone who's already been beaten half to death. As Cassis is dragged away, Roxana quietly wonders why her father suddenly remembered her birthday. The timing feels far too suspicious. While the servants carry Cassis through the mansion, they gossip among themselves. They wonder why Lady Roxana has suddenly taken an interest in a prisoner. One servant even remarks that Cassis is lucky. If he'd belonged to anyone else in the Agrich family, his organs would have already been fed to the dogs. Even after hearing every word, Cassis remains silent. As they're walking, Roxana's mother suddenly stops them. The moment she sees Cassis, she freezes. She softly calls him, Achille. The servants immediately explain that the prisoner isn't Achille, he's only Roxana's new toy. The woman gently touches Cassis' face with trembling hands before asking the servants to take good care of him. Pretending to remain unconscious, Cassis quietly pieces everything together. The woman must be one of Lant Agrich's wives, and Achille was Roxana's older brother who died years ago. For the first time, Cassis wonders, could Roxana be helping him because he reminds her of her dead brother? Later, Roxana enters Cassis' cell. Instead of leaving him in the dungeon, Roxana has brought him somewhere safer. When she sees the servants' poor treatment of his wounds, she criticizes them for barely doing the minimum. Then she kneels beside him herself. She carefully removes the metal gag from his mouth and begins applying medicine to his injuries. She even warns him that it might sting, but to Cassis' surprise, it doesn't hurt at all. It tickles. Exhausted after treating him, Roxana sits on the floor beside him. Without realizing it, she gently rests his head on her lap. Then she slowly begins stroking his silver hair. Cassis nearly panics. He's still pretending to be unconscious, but his mind is racing. Should he keep acting asleep or reveal that he's awake? Lost in thought, Roxana quietly whispers something she has never told anyone. I don't want to die yet. Then she softly adds, I'm sure you don't want to either. Those words catch Cassis completely off guard. As she brushes his hair aside, Roxana suddenly asks, Are you awake? Cassis' heart nearly stops. He prepares himself to fight his way out if she's discovered his act. But Roxana simply continues speaking. She apologizes for failing to protect him earlier. She explains that she only acted cruelly because she needed to fool her father. Then she gives him a promise. You belong to me now. No one can touch you without my permission. Finally, she tells the unconscious Cassis that she genuinely hopes he recovers and returns home safely. Unknown to Cassis, Roxana has already guessed that he's awake. She's simply pretending not to know. After saying goodbye, Roxana quietly leaves the room. The heavy door slides shut. Silence fills the room. Only then does Cassis slowly open his eyes. He sits up, replaying every word Roxana said. Without realizing it, he reaches up and gently scratches the spot on his head where she'd been stroking his hair. After a long silence, he lets out a quiet sigh. What a strange woman. The next morning, Roxana personally returns to his room carrying breakfast. To her surprise, Cassis is already awake, sitting on the bed with chains around his hands. She places the food in front of him and asks how he's feeling. Cassis looks at her and quietly says she could have simply sent a maid. Roxana calmly explains why she didn't. She had already arranged new clothes for him, but she knows exactly what would happen if she sent an unguarded maid. Cassis would overpower her and try to escape, so she came herself. Before leaving, Roxana tells him to ask if he needs more medicine, but as she turns away, she notices something strange. Cassis' face is slightly red. He's avoiding eye contact. Roxana immediately realizes why. He must have been awake the entire time she treated his wounds and rested his head on her lap. Gathering himself, Cassis finally asks the question that's been bothering him. What do you want me to do? Roxana answers without hesitation. I want you to eat, sleep, and rest so you can get better soon. Cassis is left speechless. She casually assures him the food isn't poisoned before leaving him alone. Later that day, Roxana returns with fresh clothes. As she enters, she accidentally catches Cassis changing. His torn shirt falls away, revealing countless scars covering his back. Realizing she's interrupted him, Roxana immediately tries to leave. But before she can close the door, Cassis calls out. He quietly admits he needs a bath. Roxana points him toward the bathroom she specifically chose so he could have some privacy. Then Cassis raises his chained wrists. How is he supposed to bathe while restrained? After thinking for a moment, Roxana removes the heavy shackles and fastens a simple black collar around his neck. Standing only inches apart, the two silently lock eyes before Roxana steps away. She admits it isn't ideal, but it's still much better than the chains. Before leaving, Roxana gives him one serious warning. The Agrich mansion is a giant maze. If Cassis wanders around carelessly, one of her siblings will kill him. Then she quietly reveals something unexpected. She knows a hidden shortcut leading straight out of the mansion. Cassis is stunned, but Roxana refuses to explain anything else. Instead, she simply tells him to go wash up. Outside the room, Roxana secretly sends one of her crimson butterflies inside. It isn't just decoration. The butterfly will immediately notify her if anything happens to Cassis while she's away. As she watches it disappear, another worry enters her mind. She still hasn't received any report from the butterfly she previously sent toward the western border. After taking a bath, Cassis returns looking completely different. The dried blood is gone. His silver hair shines once again. Roxana smiles. "You look much better now." She pats the bed beside her and tells him to sit down. A first aid kit rests beside her. She wants to finish treating his injuries. Cassis insists he can do it himself, but Roxana calmly asks, "What about the wounds on your back?" He has no answer. Smiling confidently, Roxana begins preparing fresh bandages. She tells him not to worry. She's been treating wounds ever since she was little. She's practically an expert. Cassis can't help asking, "Since you were a kid," Roxana quietly explains, whenever her older brother got hurt, she was always the one who patched him up. The mention of her brother catches Cassis completely off guard. Suddenly, many of her actions begin making sense. Feeling awkward, Cassis scratches the back of his head. For the first time since becoming her prisoner, the tension between them begins to fade. He finally walks over and sits beside her without resisting. Roxana gently reaches behind him, lifting the back of his shirt to begin treating the wounds covering his back. As she gently applies medicine over his scars, she quietly asks if it hurts. Cassis says nothing. Instead, Roxana finds herself staring at him. Looking at the countless scars covering his body, she can't help comparing him to the hero from the novel she once read. She silently thinks, everything about him is beautiful, and she's relieved she never allowed Charlotte to have him. Lost in thought, Roxana unknowingly rubs the same spot for too long. Suddenly, Cassis grabs her hands. That's enough. He quietly tells her to leave. Roxana isn't offended. She simply assumes he's uncomfortable letting a woman take care of him. Before leaving, she tells him a physician will visit tomorrow, then quietly says goodbye. Later that day, Roxana personally brings Cassis lunch once again. This time, the meal is simple porridge and fresh fruit. Cassis can't help asking why she keeps coming herself instead of sending servants. Roxana simply says she wants to make sure he isn't skipping meals. But halfway through the conversation, something suddenly goes wrong. Blood pours from her mouth. Sweat covers Roxana's face. Her breathing becomes heavier. The tray slips from her hands. Bowls shatter across the floor as porridge, fruit, broken dishes, and blood scatter everywhere. Despite still recovering from torture, Cassis immediately rushes forward and catches her before she collapses. She suddenly remembers the poison Emily brought her the previous day. That poison must be causing this reaction. Trying to brush it aside, she apologizes for ruining his meal. But Cassis can't believe what he's hearing. He stares at her in disbelief. "You just vomited blood. How can she call that nothing?" Roxana calmly wipes the blood from her lips. She quietly admits, "This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last." Then she unexpectedly asks him, "Are you worried about me?" Flustered, Cassis immediately denies it, but Roxana has already noticed. She thought he hated her. Instead, he's genuinely worried. She realizes something important. No matter how cold Cassis acts, he can't ignore someone who's suffering. She thanks him for his kindness before leaving the room. As she walks away, she decides, maybe it's time to let him see a softer side of her. Outside the room, Jeremy suddenly finds her. The moment he notices the blood covering her clothes, he becomes alarmed. Roxana casually explains that she had to punish her toy. Looking at the blood on herself, she says she'll wash it off once she returns to her room. As they walk together, Jeremy suddenly stops. He sniffs the air around Roxana. Immediately, He recognizes the faint scent of poison. He asks if she's been to the greenhouse again. Roxana admits she has. Inside, however, she realizes something important. If Jeremy can smell the poison, then Cassis might also be exposed to it. From now on, she decides never to visit the greenhouse before seeing him. Jeremy then pleads with her. He asks her to get rid of the poisonous egg. Once it hatches, she'll have to keep feeding it her own blood forever. He doesn't want her hurting herself, but Roxana firmly warns him not to interfere with her decisions again. Even so, she understands his concern comes from genuine kindness. Jeremy simply doesn't want to lose her. Trying to lighten the mood, Jeremy reminds her that at least only one egg survived. Raising 3 poisonous butterflies would have been even harder. Roxana smiles. She gently pats his head, telling him she understands. The two quietly walk away together. As they leave, Roxana reveals a secret Jeremy doesn't know. Earlier, she had already prepared a meal, not for Cassis, but for her newly hatched butterfly. Fresh blood drips from her injured arm onto the floor. Immediately, crimson butterflies swarm toward the blood. The hallway fills with hundreds of fluttering wings. After feeding, the butterflies gently settle onto Roxana's hair, face, and shoulders. She watches them without fear, then silently reveals the truth. She has finally succeeded in hatching one of the poisonous butterfly eggs. She reflected on the terrifying creatures she had been secretly raising, the poison butterflies. These weren't ordinary insects. Every poison they consumed changed them, making them deadlier than before. Years of forcing poison into her own body had transformed her blood into the perfect food for them. Though she only had a small number now, she knew that one day she'd command an entire swarm capable of destroying anyone who stood in her way. But there was one secret that absolutely couldn't be exposed. She had already succeeded in hatching one of the butterfly eggs. Not even her closest maid knew about it. If the Agrich family discovered the truth before she was ready, everything would be ruined. Her true objective remained the same. She had to help Cassis Pedelian escape. To begin that plan, Roxana sent one of her crimson butterflies on a dangerous mission to the western border. As it flew farther away, maintaining the connection drained her strength, but she endured the pain. Every sacrifice brought her one step closer to freeing Cassis. Later, while walking through the mansion's garden, Roxana unexpectedly crossed paths with Maria, Lant Agrich's third wife. Maria welcomed her with an unusually warm smile, praising Roxana's beauty before inviting her for tea. She even suggested calling Dion to join them. Just then, a maid arrived with an urgent message. But before the maid could finish speaking, Maria calmly interrupted her. "I don't remember giving you permission to speak." In the next instant, the maid was brutally executed. Without the slightest emotion, Maria ordered the servants to feed the body to the monsters. Moments later, she turned back to Roxana as though nothing had happened, apologizing only for the blood that might have stained her clothes. Roxana politely declined the tea invitation and quietly left, realizing once again that beneath Maria's cheerful personality hid someone every bit as terrifying as the rest of the Agrich family. Meanwhile, deep beneath the mansion, Jeremy wandered through the underground dungeon where monsters were kept. 2 maids arrived carrying the corpse Maria had ordered them to dispose of. Jeremy warned them, "You should find another room." But confident in their abilities, the maids ignored his advice. As soon as they entered, Jeremy casually leaned against the wall and started counting. 119. Before he reached 120, the door burst open. Maids were violently thrown back out of the room. Jeremy simply smiled. 120. That was only 2 minutes. "Didn't I warn you?" The surviving maids stood there trembling in fear. Jeremy told them to finish their job somewhere else. They quickly bowed and hurried away, too frightened to argue. One of them glanced back for just a second. Jeremy immediately barked, "What are you looking at? Go!" The terrified maids disappeared without another word. Leaving the dungeon behind, Jeremy stepped into the beautiful flower garden. The bright sunlight and blooming red flowers couldn't hide the unsettling sight waiting ahead. Standing gracefully among the flowers was Maria. Her elegant dress, gloves, and parasol were still soaked with fresh blood. Yet she smiled as sweetly as ever. Jeremy casually greeted her. "Hey, old lady." Maria turned around with a delighted smile. "Oh my, Jeremy, how lovely of you to come see me." Surrounded by crimson flowers that matched the blood staining her clothes, Maria looked both beautiful and utterly horrifying. And with Jeremy finally coming face to face with Maria, he speaks, "You still got that gross habit of yours? Killing off maids for no reason. What the hell is wrong with you?" Yet she smiles as if nothing unusual has happened. Jeremy can't help staring at her. "Are you serious? You're covered in blood." Maria simply laughs it off. She casually mentions that she met Roxana earlier and had wanted to invite both Roxana and Dion for tea. The moment Jeremy hears Dion's name, his expression changes completely. He firmly warns Maria to keep Dion away from Roxana. When Maria jokingly says it would be nice for Roxana to spend time with her brother, Dion, Jeremy immediately snaps. He declares that he is Roxana's only brother now. Still annoyed, Jeremy turns to leave. As he walks away, he grumbles that Roxana barely has time for him anymore because she's always busy with her new toy. Maria immediately becomes curious. What toy? Without thinking, Jeremy reveals the truth. The blue-haired prisoner, it was her birthday present. Only after Jeremy leaves does Maria realize she's learned a secret she was never supposed to know. With a mysterious smile, she decides she'll have to investigate Roxana's new toy herself. Elsewhere, a young soldier nervously approaches Roxana. Although he's still wearing bandages from his previous injuries, he shyly offers her a bouquet of purple flowers. Roxana warmly accepts the gift and thanks him. The soldier is overjoyed that she even remembered his name. Later, Roxana brings the flowers to Cassis' room. She offers them to him, hoping they'll brighten the prison cell. But the moment Cassis sees them, his expression changes. He immediately recognizes the flowers. They are an experimental poisonous plant created by the Agrich family. The poison only causes mild paralysis, and because the experiment failed, almost no one even knows these flowers exist. Confused, Cassis asks who gave them to her. Roxana calmly replies that they came from one of her father's men. After hearing the explanation, she decides to simply leave the flowers in the room as decoration. Then Roxana suddenly tells Cassis she has something important to show him. She briefly covers his eyes, then secretly pulls a folded paper from inside her dress. When Cassis asks where she had been hiding it, she casually replies, "Where else was I supposed to hide these?" She unfolds the paper on the floor. It's a complete map of the Agrich mansion. Roxana tells him to memorize it quickly because she'll have to burn it before leaving. She admits she knows he still doesn't fully trust her. That's exactly why she'll personally guide him through the mansion once it's safe. That way, he can confirm everything with his own eyes instead of simply believing her words. Cassis carefully studies the map and asks where they are. Roxana points directly to their current location inside the mansion. As he continues examining it, he realizes something. This isn't just a map. It's a hidden escape route. He asks if she discovered a secret way out of the mansion. Roxana smiles. That's right. But she immediately warns him, there's still one problem with using that path. The two continue studying the blueprint together as Roxana prepares to explain the obstacle standing between Cassis and his freedom. Roxana and Cassis study the secret map of the Agrich mansion. Once Cassis memorizes every route, Roxana burns the only copy without hesitation, making sure no evidence of their escape plan remains. Left alone with the bouquet of purple flowers Roxana brought earlier, Cassis becomes suspicious. He recognizes the flowers as an unfinished poisonous plant created by the Agrich family. It didn't seem like Roxana knew that. I don't know how harmful it is to the human body, but I can still tell it's poisonous from the faint smell. Could Lant Agress be behind this? To test the flower, he channels his power into one flower. The flower instantly withers and shatters into glowing blue fragments. But something is wrong. His ability is much weaker than normal. Cassis realizes the restraints around his neck are suppressing his powers. Meanwhile, Roxana is summoned to meet her father, Lant Agrich. Lant asks whether her new toy has become obedient. Roxana calmly replies that Cassis is improving every day and that she's looking forward to playing with him once he's completely fixed. Satisfied with her answer, Lant tells Roxana that she reminds him more and more of himself. Then he suddenly brings up Achille, Roxana's older brother who died during one of the Agrich family's deadly tests. Lant coldly calls the dead child useless and claims he was a bad influence on Roxana, without showing the slightest emotion. Roxana agrees. She declares that Achille means nothing to her. Even if he were still alive, she would still be the same person she is today. Finally, she bows respectfully and tells Lant that she is a proud member of the Agrich family and admires him more than anyone else. Only after leaving his presence does Roxana finally allow herself to relax, exhausted by the conversation. Later, one of Roxana's crimson butterflies returns from the western border. The moment it lands on her hand, its memories flood into her mind. She sees a horrifying battlefield covered with corpses. Standing calmly among the dead is Dion Agrich. The butterfly has witnessed an entire massacre. The vision disappears. Roxana immediately realizes what it means. If the butterfly has already returned, then Dion must be arriving back at the mansion right now. She quickly pieces everything together. Lant must have ordered Dion to eliminate everyone at the western border. Once again, Dion has moved faster than she expected. Knowing this changes everything, Roxana decides she has to warn Cassis immediately. She rushes to his room. Cassis looks up in confusion as she unexpectedly enters. He simply asks, "What is it?" Roxana is about to reveal everything, but she suddenly stops. After thinking it through, she changes her mind. Warning him now won't help. The Pedelian family will never stop searching for Cassis, and escaping now would only create even greater danger. Instead, she decides to strengthen her surveillance around the borders and wait patiently for the next opportunity. Looking directly at Cassis, Roxana quietly calls his name. Then, after all the urgency that brought her there, she says only one thing: "Get well soon." Without another explanation, she leaves the room, leaving Cassis alone, wondering why she came at all. The next day begins with a heavy rainstorm sweeping across the Agrich mansion. After feeding her poisonous butterfly egg, Roxana is caught in the downpour. By the time she reaches the mansion, she's completely soaked. She was planning to visit Cassis, but decides against it, thinking she shouldn't appear before him like this. Just as she turns to leave, someone blocks her path. It's Dion, freshly returned from his mission. The moment he notices the bandages on Roxana's arm, he grabs her wrist and asks how she was injured. Was it poisonous butterflies? She dropped her hand and asks, "When did you get back? Weren't you away on a mission?" He replied, "I came just now." Dion studies the wound before quietly commenting that he thought her last poisonous egg hadn't hatched yet. She terrifyingly asks, "Let go of me." He then brings up Cassis, saying he heard Roxana has taken him as her new toy. Roxana casually replies that news travels quickly. Dion admits he normally has no interest in the family's affairs. He only paid attention because it involved her. Roxana simply laughs it off, calls the idea stupid, and walks away, leaving Dion standing alone in the rain. Meanwhile, Cassis continues recovering inside his prison. Although his wounds are healing, the restraints around his neck still limit his movements. He believes he'll recover soon if he continues treating his injuries carefully. Later, Roxana visits him again. As Cassis sees her enter, she is lost in her thoughts. She remembers Dion's cold, emotionless face and wonders if anyone in the world is capable of making Dion show even the slightest emotion. Hearing faint sounds outside the room, she briefly suspects Dion might still be waiting nearby. The thought leaves her uneasy. While standing inside the room, Roxana suddenly notices blood dripping from her own injured arm. She realizes Dion must have reopened her wound when he grabbed her wrist earlier. For a moment, she considers leaving. But if Dion is still outside, walking out now might force another encounter with him. Instead, she stays with Cassis. Cassis says, "You are bleeding too much, you shouldn't go around looking like that." Cassis throws her a clean cloth so she can wipe the blood from her own arm before quietly sitting on the bed. Cassis gently takes the bandages from her hands. He carefully wraps her injured arm himself. While examining the wound, he quietly remarks that it looks like it was caused by a blade. Roxana realizes she should have hidden the injury more carefully. Watching him treat her so gently, she notices something unusual. Cassis has begun lowering his guard around her. It's not a secret that Cassis cherishes his family. In the book, it's mentioned several times that he is close to his sister, Sylvia. Probably he softened a bit because I remind him of her. She says you remind me of my big brother. Internally, she smiles and thinks I have found his weakness. Then Roxana makes an unexpected request. She pulls Cassis close and tells him she needs his help. Then she admits that neither of them truly trusts the other. Because of that, she wants to create a safety device between them. Before doing anything, she asks him for one promise. No matter what happens, don't hate her. Without another warning, Roxana pushes Cassis onto the bed. He immediately demands to know what she's doing. Instinctively, he reaches out to stop her, but at the last second, he restrains himself. Even in that situation, he refuses to forcefully touch her. Watching him, Roxana realizes just how much of a gentleman he truly is. She gently cups his face and asks him to relax. She promises everything will be over quickly and tells him he won't have to do anything. Cassis remains tense, unable to understand her intentions. Then, Roxana suddenly kisses him. The unexpected kiss leaves Cassis completely frozen. His breathing becomes uneven as he instinctively grabs onto her clothes. When Roxana finally pulls away, she calmly thanks him for cooperating. Looking at the marks beginning to appear on his neck, she quietly thinks that, for now, what she wanted has been accomplished. Later, Roxana secretly watches two men talking together in the mansion's garden. Seeing them side by side reminds her of Achille, the brother who died after failing the Agrich family's deadly test. And Dion was the one who ultimately killed him. She thinks she'll never like him. Before she can finish the thought, the memory of Dion suddenly appears before her. His sword is covered in fresh blood. He coldly tells her that if she can't bring herself to do something, then she simply shouldn't do it. The sight of Dion and his blood-stained sword drags Roxana back into painful memories. She remembers that Dion is the only person who has ever seen her at her weakest. Overwhelmed by hallucinations, she sees her dead brother Achilles smiling at her and calling her by name. Unable to bear it any longer, Roxana swings her sword. The illusion disappears. She suddenly awakens back in her room, realizing everything she saw had been another hallucination. Jeremy later apologizes for accidentally telling Maria about Cassis. At the same time, Roxana receives an invitation. Maria is hosting another tea party. The invitation specifically asks every guest to bring their favorite toy. Although Roxana accepts the invitation, she can't shake the feeling that something bad is about to happen. The next day, she arrives at Maria's luxurious greenhouse. Dressed elegantly beneath a black lace veil decorated with crimson butterflies, Roxana immediately draws everyone's attention. The greenhouse falls silent as all eyes turn toward her. She walks up to Maria with her usual calm smile and politely says, "Thank you for inviting me." Roxana greets her mother, who is surprised to see her at the gathering. Watching her mother's timid behavior around Maria, Roxana compares their relationship to a snake and its prey. Looking around at the Agrich family, she can't help but think that no one in this family is truly normal. The conversation soon turns to Cassis. The noblewomen complain that Roxana didn't bring her toy to the tea party. Some admit they wanted to admire his beauty, while another even reveals she brought a decorative birdcage just for him. They speak about a living person as if he were nothing more than a rare pet. When asked why Cassis isn't completely obedient, Roxana calmly says he's simply shy and might even bite someone. The women suggest drugging him. Roxana replies that she's considered it, but if he becomes too obedient, she'll probably get bored with him and kill him. The disturbing answer only makes the women continue their conversation as if nothing were wrong. Maria then proudly introduces the newest addition to her collection. A chained woman named Lowell is dragged into the greenhouse. Her body is covered in scars, and her face has been horribly disfigured. Maria cheerfully calls her new doll beautiful and orders her to serve tea. Terrified, Lowell obeys. But while pouring tea for Sierra, the cup slips from her hands, spilling hot tea across the table. Maria immediately becomes furious and threatens to punish Lowell. Unable to stay silent, Sierra bravely steps in and takes the blame herself, begging Maria not to punish the chained woman. Maria smiles sweetly once again, making it impossible for anyone to know what she's truly thinking. Just as Maria orders Lowell to be taken away, a flower pot suddenly crashes onto the floor. Everyone turns toward the noise. Roxana calmly apologizes, claiming her hand slipped. She asks her mother to run cold water on her red hand. She orders a servant to escort her mother out. As her mother walks away, the horrifying screams of prisoners fighting inside nearby cages echo through the greenhouse. The guests casually place bets on who will survive. Nobody shows the slightest sympathy. Watching the horrifying spectacle, Roxana silently concludes, "These people are nothing but savages. I am glad I got my mother out of here." Suddenly, guards burst into the greenhouse with urgent news. Cassis has escaped. She asks how he could have freed himself from his shackles and escaped from his room. The guards admit they tried to bring him to the tea party because they believed Dion had ordered it. Roxana immediately realizes someone acted without her permission. She coldly orders the guards to kneel and beg for your life right now before I cut your head off. She demands to know where Cassis was last seen. After learning Jeremy is already pursuing him, she calmly sends Emily after the escapees. Emily politely refuses anyone else's help. Before anyone can react, the entire greenhouse begins shaking. At first, everyone thinks it's an earthquake. Then, a gigantic spider-like creature crashes through the glass ceiling, destroying the elegant greenhouse in seconds. Panic erupts. Guests scream and flee in every direction. But unlike everyone else, Roxana remains perfectly calm and quietly says to herself, "All right, it looks like I need to take care of this first." The nobles panic, servants flee, and the elegant celebration turns into a bloodbath. 30 minutes ago, deep inside the prison, Jeremy discovers that Cassis is taken away on Dion's orders. Furious, he lashes out at the guards, demanding to know why they obeyed Dion without question. As Jeremy confronts Cassis, he notices strange bite marks on his neck. Curious, he asks Cassis to stand next to him. Cassis rejects his orders. In rage, he throws a punch, but Cassis barely reacts. Realizing Cassis wants an opportunity to escape, Jeremy suddenly changes tactics. Instead of stopping him, he loudly announces that the prisoner has escaped, forcing every guard in the mansion to chase Cassis. Cassis thinks Jeremy can't do anything to me because I belong to Roxana. That's why he is making it seem like I am a fugitive, but this isn't the worst situation I could be in. He doesn't think that I can escape from him. Jeremy smiles to himself. A disobedient person like you deserves to be taught a lesson. Cassis knows that he is doing this only so that he could attack me. Jeremy grabs the chain attached to Cassis's collar, but Cassis cleverly uses the tension to throw Jeremy off balance and keep running. Moments later, the heavy restraints finally snap apart. Now free of his shackles, Cassis becomes much faster, but his body is still badly weakened from days of torture. Just as he begins pulling away, a horrifying monster suddenly blocks his path. Jeremy doesn't fight him directly. Instead, he leads Cassis straight toward the escaped monsters. The giant creatures begin slaughtering everyone around them. The courtyard is filled with screams as people are torn apart one after another. One desperate cry for help reaches Cassis. Although he has every reason to ignore the people of Agres, he can't bring himself to watch someone die before his eyes. Spotting a fallen spear, he grabs it and launches himself into the air. With every bit of strength he has left, he drives the spear deep into one of the giant monsters, stopping its attack. As the battle ends, the fallen servant thanks Cassis for saving his life. Cassis can't stop thinking about why a prisoner like me saved his life. I have no reason to help. I also have no reason to ignore the cries of a dying man right in front of me. Before the moment can continue, Jeremy appears, hanging upside down from a tree branch as if nothing unusual has happened. He mocks Cassis for surviving. He jokes that even after fighting countless monsters, Cassis is somehow still alive. Cassis finally loses his temper. He accuses Jeremy of causing the entire disaster by releasing the monsters in the first place. Jeremy simply laughs and replies that Cassis should have stayed in his room, like a nice, obedient toy. Those words are enough. Enraged, Cassis charges straight at Jeremy with his weapon, just before the attack lands. A blood-stained sword suddenly blocks the strike. Dion calmly looks at the destroyed courtyard before sarcastically asking Jeremy, "You made quite a ruckus. Were you taking your dog out for a walk?" After stopping the fight between Jeremy and Cassis, Dion Agres finally steps forward. Instead of attacking immediately, he questions Jeremy about the monster outbreak. Jeremy fires back, insisting that none of this would have happened if Dion hadn't ordered Cassis to be moved. Realizing something bigger is happening, Dion quietly concludes that their mother must be behind it all. Dion then turns his attention to Cassis. With a mocking smile, he reveals that he has already wiped out an entire search party that came looking for Cassis. The moment Cassis hears this, he stops holding back. Cassis charges forward with his spear while Dion calmly waits with his sword drawn. The two clash head-on. Cassis attacks with incredible speed, but Dion effortlessly blocks every strike. The more they fight, the more Cassis realizes something terrifying. Dion isn't even fighting seriously. When Cassis asks why Dion refuses to kill him, Dion calmly replies, "Because that job belongs to someone else." Those words make Cassis realize this entire encounter has been carefully planned. As the battle continues, a blonde woman suddenly rushes into the battlefield, calling out to Dion. At that exact moment, another giant monster bursts from the bushes and attacks Dion from behind. Dion casually blocks the monster's assault without even looking flustered. Seeing Dion occupied, Cassis immediately thinks, "This is my chance to escape." But before anyone can move, Roxana's mother suddenly appears near the battlefield. Dion's next attack is headed straight toward her. Realizing she has no way to defend herself, Cassis ignores his own injuries and throws his spear with every ounce of strength he has left. Cassis's spear pierces straight through the monster's head, saving Roxana's mother. The spear kills the monster instantly, but the magical restraints around Cassis's wrists activate. Violent electricity surges through his body, dropping him to the ground. Before he can recover, Dion slashes his back and calmly walks toward him. Now completely helpless, Cassis can only endure the relentless electric shocks while Dion stands over him. Nearby, Jeremy rushes to check on Sierra, asking if she's hurt. Terrified and trembling, Sierra desperately begs, "Please, don't kill Achille." She collapses to the ground in tears. Meanwhile, Dion raises his spear for the final blow. Just as he's about to strike, a crimson butterfly collides with Dion's spear, snapping it in half before it reaches Cassis. A crimson butterfly shatters the weapon. Everyone looks up, standing there in an elegant crimson dress. Roxana has finally arrived. She stares directly at Dion and calmly asks, "What do you think you're doing right now?" And with that, Roxana finally steps in to protect Cassis.